Hello and welcome to Browse. My name is Angela Mirembe and we're here today to talk to some very, very vital ICT sector organizations. And right here with us today, we have Michael Newman Byamugisha from Andela Uganda, who's in charge of the IT-enabled services. And we also have Richard Okuti, the National Coordinator for Netherlands Trust Fund 4. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about one of the things that I knew existed but didn't know so much about, and that is BPO. Imagine I worked in Technobrain in the training department, and I always heard that we had a sister department up there called BPO. But today I'm really glad that we're here to discuss what is BPO, what's it all about, is it necessary for us as the youth to know about it, why is Andela involved? And then we're also going to talk to Richard about the Netherlands Trust Fund to find out what kind of part they play in the BPO services or IT-enabled services. So I think I'll start with you, Michael.
Yes,
what do you want to tell us about BPO?
Thank you very much, Angie. Our BPO is business process outsourcing. Okay. It is part of the wider family called IT-enabled services. So what BPO exactly means is that you're looking at companies taking a decision to have certain activities that were done internally to be done by someone by a third party.
Okay.
Reason being that the third party can perform that particular activity better than the company itself and many others.
Okay.
Yes.
So basically what I get is when I was doing some research, it basically suggests that rather than, I think it's what happened in telecoms actually, rather than have 60 people work for you directly where you have to pay things like their medical bills and their food and everything, it's much easier to get a team to worry about that and concentrate on your core work.
Yes, that's right.
I think some of the telecoms, even overseas, are really keen on you hear that you make a call, you're in the UK and you call for customer service and you're actually getting a call picked up from India. So if you're promoting BPO services, what are some of the things or advantages that you're trying to bring across? What are you curbing?
Basically, we're looking at three main things. One is job creation.
Okay.
You see, BPO services look at those activities that needed 24/7 activity,
right,
which you cannot do from the usual companies. Take an example of a contact center for a utility.
Right.
You would want to be present 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yeah.
So if you have that service run internally, it means that you will be active between 8 and 5.
Okay.
And you remember this is a service that is even enjoyed more after 5 o'clock.
Yes.
Take an example of television services,
yes,
or water or electricity. So you want to have your clients serviced at all times. So one of the things we look at under BPO is that we offer service beyond the usual 5 o'clock, 8 to 5 o'clock.
Right.
And because it's 24/7, it means that where we would have had one person offering that service, you're going to have 3 people. Okay. Because if you need to offer the service 24 hours,
yes,
then it can't be done by one person.
Absolutely.
So it's employment, and it's once employment is available, then it means taxes for the government of Uganda.
Okay.
And it means we are also chasing away poverty.
Yes.
Yes.
Because that's one of the things actually I want to talk to Richard about. You as the Netherlands Trust Fund, you're embarking on the same project, I believe. You're working hand in hand with Andela, and he's talked about getting rid of poverty. And one of the things that I noticed is ICT is contributing to our GDP, although it's at a very low, should I say a low rate?
Yes.
If I remember correctly, it should have been like maybe 2.something%. And I saw that we're trying to strive it to reach at least 20% of the GDP. Yeah. So what kind of role do you play?
Well, that is a really loaded question, but I'll try and first I'll give you a background.
Okay.
And how we came to cooperate with the government of Uganda to implement what would refer to as development solutions to this area. As the Netherlands Trust Fund project, this is the 4th phase.
Okay.
The name is because it's funded by the Dutch government.
Right.
However, it's implemented by the International Trade Center,
Okay.
which is one of the UN agencies. And really, the role we're trying to play is to contribute to increasing the capacity of SMEs,
Right.
Women-led SMEs, youth-led, and the other SMEs led by men, and so forth.
Right.
We want to help them build their capacity to be able to trade in the global economy, especially when you look at services and focusing at IT and IT-enabled services.
Right.
You realize that this is an area where it's still green.
Yes.
There's a lot of opportunities. Youth are coming up with a lot of apps.
Yes.
They are very innovative. They're coming up with what they call disruptive technologies. So they can't sell only to Uganda, but they could sell to the rest of the world. So apart from building capacity, we also introduce them to potential buyers by connecting them to different organizations around the world so that they can start trading and thereby reducing their dependence. They make more money, they hire more people, and they contribute generally to the GDP and to the wealth creation for the country.
Okay.
So far, is that...
So thank you, Richard, for that insightful discussion. So when I come back to you, Michael.
Yes.
So now with the promotion of BPO, why Uganda? Why is Uganda considered stable enough to have BPO running right now?
Thank you, Angie. We have a number of reasons why why Uganda is ready for BPO. The first being we have our unemployment rates are high, but we have youth that are educated, and BPO comes into play because what you're talking about is that we are getting work from other countries to be performed by our youth here.
Okay.
There are countries that have benefited a lot, that have used BPO to solve the issue of unemployment. India being one of them, which we all very well know.
Yes.
If you happen to call any of the contact centers of most of these international banks, the person who responds to you usually would be from India.
Why don't we see the direct benefits? Like, why would BPO work here in Uganda? What are some of the great things that would make it favorable here?
All right, thank you, Angie. There are benefits that accrue to the individuals and as well as the companies that do the outsourcing itself.
Okay.
For the individuals, of course, there is a job creation for the unemployed. For the companies that outsource, BPO looks at what is non-core activity for that company.
Yes.
You give it to someone who can do it better than you.
So you can concentrate.
You're talking about efficiency.
Right.
You're talking about having time to do other activities that are core to your business.
Okay.
Yes.
So the employment section, obviously, we know, I think it was yesterday, was saying we've reached 83%, and I wondered, are we going to reach 90% by 2020? It's a very scary thought. But I find it like it's a catch-22 because at one point you're making people lose jobs and at the other time they're being recruited because someone might have a degree and they can't get the job for the degree, but they say, at least let me do customer care for a decent salary. But then the BPO comes and says, we're offering these services at this very minimal rate. So even someone who was thinking, let me get customer care, at least I'll get medical benefits or something, those jobs have been swiped off. So what's the balance? Do you think it's the right way to go to bring BPO in Uganda?
Okay, you see, just to use your example, if the customer care activity is done in-house,
yes,
it's going to be done between 8 and 5.
Yes, okay.
One person. If you outsource that service, that customer care is that one seat will be done by three people because it's a 24/7 service, and one person can't work for 24 hours.
Okay.
So the BPO companies will employ 3 people for that particular service.
Okay. To keep it 24 hours.
Besides that, in the industry, BPO industry, there are direct jobs and indirect jobs.
Okay.
Now, when you employ 3 people, there are 3 other people employed that aren't direct. I will need to move from my home to come and work, that is transport.
Right.
I will need to eat, that is food.
Okay.
I will need someone to treat me,
Right.
that is hospital and healthcare. I will need where to stay. Now, it means I will no longer, if I've just graduated from the university
Okay.
and I have a job, it follows that I will have to leave my my parents' home and go to my home.
So
that is again also an opportunity for.
So it's basically a ripple effect.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now that you've painted a very rosy picture, what are some of the downfalls or the things that are stopping us as a nation from reaching that peak? To reach where Bangladesh is or India. What are some of the obstacles that we're facing as Uganda?
The main one is culture.
Okay.
Our graduates, both from universities and tertiary institutions, are trained to look at 8 to 5 job. So when you tell someone you're going to work over the weekend or after 5, it's a problem.
It's my beach time.
So you really we need to change. To change the culture
attitude, yes.
and the attitude.
Okay.
Secondly, BPO requires internet connectivity, fast speed,
yes,
reliable. So we have to work in that angle as well.
Okay.
We need also other types of infrastructure, roads,
yes,
and power.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So that we don't have to waste time in traffic jams.
Yeah.
We don't look at the man hours that we spend in traffic jams.
Yeah.
But you realize that about 4 hours, roughly 4 hours, people waste 2 hours as you're going, 2 hours as you're coming back.
Wow.
Yeah? So that is something we also need to work on if you want to have this industry thrive.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Michael, I just want to take you back a little bit. You had talked about basically BPO removing the unnecessary involvement of non-core issues within the company. For example, someone, I use the example of customer care because I know that's something I'm very familiar with. There might be other roles that, are very easily replaced. Now, there might be someone out there who was actually about to graduate or who has just graduated and their CV has had on it, customer care agent ready to work. Is there still hope for young people like that without being threatened by BPO taking away all their jobs? How does it work exactly?
Thank you very much, Angie. BPO it's not taking away jobs. BPO is, as a matter of fact, is actually multiplying the jobs.
Okay.
I'll take an example of accountants.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You may find that a company is not able to employ an accountant full-time basis.
Right.
Yes. In that case, you find that a company would like to have an accountant on short-term basis.
Okay.
Okay. And yes, we don't have individuals that you can employ on short-term basis.
Right.
You have a job between January and March, and then you go away.
Yes.
The best option would be for that company to outsource that accountancy work to an accountancy firm that has got a pool of 100 of.
And they don't have to struggle with the HR looking and then agreeing, what if I work 3 days a week and everything like that. Yes. Okay, I believe.
There are certain activities that companies do that don't require full-time staff.
Yeah.
So those activities, you can, they are best executed under the BPO environment. Yes. Okay. The other one that is non-IT is, but all of us relate to it, is security services.
Right.
You agree with me that these days we have security companies that we hire to come and guard our premises, which never used to be the case back then.
Yeah.
We'd find that security people for these particular companies used to be part of this.
Yeah, part of the staff.
Yes, but now when you want security, you run to
security
companies that we know around here.
Yes.
Why? Because they can do that work better than.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Michael. Richard, I hope you're going to give me a good explanation as Michael has done here. So on your side, I know that you're working with NITA as well in support of this, and especially working with SMEs. When you look at SMEs in Uganda, and their business thriving? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're talking about BPO, at the back of my mind, I'm hoping that I'll have a business that's big enough to need BPO at one point. But when we talk about the businesses in Uganda and our infrastructure for trade and things like that, what are some obstacles that the Netherlands Trust Fund is finding? For example, what are some of the issues that you're tackling? What have you seen needs your eye or your assistance, and what are you doing about it?
Yeah, thank you. Of course, you can't solve all the challenges that we experience.
Right.
But we find ways in which we can address them. For instance, there's some of the challenges we address together with the government, including formulating strategies that country level, national level kind of strategies that will work on together and influence to be implemented by different sectors, so that we can reach a viable solution for some of the problems like infrastructure, like housing. Government is building what we call IT parks or innovation parks, where these youth will go and work. This is something that we can discuss together, and then the organization, which is usually the government that has resources, will invest so that we have the IT parks. We can also work with government to tweak the kind of training that the youth go through in the universities, so that we prepare them for these kind of jobs. And these can all be included in a strategy that the project works on together with the government. And that's why you see the relationship with NITA is more strengthened in that way. However, we don't only stop at that. Then we realize that each independent youth organization cannot work alone. Not every innovator or every SME will run to the foreign market alone or go to government alone. So we create and support what we call trade and investment support institutions. Usually we can even pick already existing associations in the industry to play the role, to increasingly play the role of improving the skills of these youth, introducing them to markets, and maybe even jointly offering a solution, because one person may not be able to offer a solution. But if you have several people like this, they can work together to offer one solution. So again, through these organized groups. And then with them directly, we also train them. For instance, when you talk about BPO and working with other countries, there are certain standards that you have to
reach an international standard.
Including even just communication on phone. How do you communicate on phone? How do you respond to inquiries? And so many things, up to the technical standards. If you're a programmer, is your programming well documented that another programmer can come and see and start from where you stopped? All these kind of standards. Then you may even have to buy internationally recognized certifications, just to say that, I can work at this standard because this certification has recognized me as well. And so you find that there are several pillars that we work with to kind of move the whole system up, because it's really big, including taking them to foreign markets. So to give you more specific examples, the more younger youth who are just fresh from university are now registered by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. We tap into that pool to kind of access innovators. And these are, registered in different categories. Those that are advanced in their innovations, those that are making it there, and so forth. And we tailor support to those different groups. Then you'll find that the SMEs may also work with the ICT Association of Uganda, and maybe the Alliance for Trade in Information Technology and Services, and as well certified by NITA. Again, we categorize them in different levels and support them according to that level. So you find it's a collective
you've mentioned,
thing, working together,
You've mentioned quite a few interesting things. However, I must admit that most of the organizations you're talking about, the people you reach out, how do the young people find out about this? Because everything you've mentioned, and we spend a lot of time with young people, It's unknown. It's unknown, and actually, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask, because you're working with big organizations, the ministry. Ministry of ICT, NITAU. Now, what about for us? How do we find the opportunities in there? Because we see young people being innovators. We see, is it just a small number who have this information? Where is it advertised? Because there's so many who would like to be helped. And that's, for example, why we're here. For example, in training, we totally understand what you're talking about. We have people who face issues with having confidence and things like that. Who does your training? Where do people get this kind of training? If you're talking about putting it in schools, is it something that NITA is going to do? What are the real practical steps that any youth watching today can wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? Let me go and really start my business. Oh, I've started. Because many feel stuck. Yes. They've been to incubation centers. They come, they sit, they spend their days there. But the movement, and I think it's worrying, because that's the employment rate keeps getting higher. But then however many funds are there and everything, nothing seems to be tackling. So what are you doing differently?
Well, that is interesting. And for your information, and Michael may add something here, the ministry and NITA are actually quite different organizations in terms of how they operate. They have access to a lot of youth through the universities and colleges. We also use a lot of media. That is social media. We use the print media. We use the existing websites of these organizations and several other media. I think the biggest challenge is that we now have many universities.
Yes.
And there's a lot of media as well.
Yes.
So we need to tailor ways in which we can make sure that this information gets closer to them.
Yes.
But more specifically for the NTF4 project, we tend not to reach out so far and wide. For instance, for the innovators, we use the pool that already exists through the government of Uganda to pick. And we don't pick all of them because our main objective is to internationalize. So we try to get the ones that have developed a bit more so that we can expose them to foreign markets. And so we pick from those that have already been accessed by the government. In addition to that, we usually advertise, again, through several media, so that when we are doing the selection, we again use a criteria which sieves out some of the leading ones. Because remember, at country level, we want to brand Uganda nicely and get a niche market somewhere so that we can start to get these buyers buy from us. So at a later point, the advancement of these top organizations, companies and innovators will help also the younger ones come up. It's not that we are ignoring them, but
it's a process. Everyone gets their turn. You reach the top, you get it.
So we take them in stages, and hopefully we will. There will be a trickle-down effect.
To sum it up, I'll ask, quite frankly, how long do you see this taking off? How many years? Months? Years? How long do we have to go before we achieve this great BPO goal? And what can a young person do to promote this? What would you tell them to do for their nation?
I think, in the space that we're working, especially services, and when you talk about IT products, IT services, and IT-enabled services, it can be disruptive, meaning that it can take off immediately. And it can also take time. So we are working in a very unique time that we can have something take off like a bushfire in very dry grass. I'll use examples. In our previous project, which was NTF3, we had certain companies just take off very fast. And then others were growing in steps. I don't know whether I can name a few of them, but we have companies like Clinic Master, which have grown and have been recognized for their software that is used for management of patients in hospitals. Those have really taken off. And
Okay.
I think even the public sector hospitals have recognized that this software application can also work for them.
Oh, good for them.
And remember that once government recognizes an application, it means it's fairly good because they really,
They have to scrutinize and see
Yes.
the loopholes.
So you have organizations like that one. You have organizations like Hostelite, which have started
Yes.
schools and have partnered with other countries, and they now have a product for
Investment?
investment called Cinnamon.
Cinnamon, yes.
In fact, I think they are called the Cinnamon brand is now even bigger than the company.
Wow.
And some of these were just triggered,
Yes.
So, in brief, it can be disruptive, but it can also take time. But within 5 years, you should be able to see a change.
Some change.
Yes.
Great. Any final words, Michael?
You asked about when are we going to see this take off?
Yes, when do you...
My response is that it has already taken off.
Okay.
As under National IT Authority, we have the BPO Center, where we bring in private companies, we give them a free accommodation, office space, free internet. The idea here is that if these guys come and have these incentives,
Yes.
then they will grow and be bigger. Okay. We also have people who are doing BPO in their individual capacities. We are now seeing a number of individuals in the different spheres, lawyers, accountants, engineers, and doing work for companies that are outside Uganda. So it's already happening. All that we need to do is just organize the people involved and give it more marketing, and that is what we are doing as NITAU and the BPO area.
Okay.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the lovely gentleman from NITA, as well as NTF4, the Netherlands Trust Fund 4. Michael, thank you so much for being here. Richard, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for watching. Once again, my name is Angela Mirembe here on Browse, and we hope to see you soon.